My first job was with LG as a corporate communications person.
So at what point during your corporate career did the idea of entrepreneurship spark?
When you become an entrepreneur, you kind of have to let go of a lot of that. You are the intern, you're the social media, you're the finance guy.
And is it difficult to juggle all those different hats?
At a certain point in your entrepreneurial journey, you will find that it's time to hire people, it's time to hire the right partners and let them do what they're best at so that you can focus on actually doing things which are helping the business grow.
Could you tell me 3 non-negotiable skills that a 17-year-old should focus on?
There's a lot of choices and skills and capabilities which are available right now to make your first lakh.
Could you share how someone can start their digital marketing journey in 2025? Welcome to another episode of She Means Business, where we spotlight bold women creating impact across industries. Today's guest, Ms. Anita Sahoo, is a multidisciplinary marketing leader with deep experience across brand strategy, communications, e-commerce, digital marketing, and CRM. She's also the founder of Home Kouzina, a passion-driven venture that brings home-style culinary experiences to life. Combining her sharp marketing acumen with a deep understanding of consumer tastes, she's bridging business with authenticity and heart. If you're a young woman navigating marketing or dreaming of starting your own brand, this one's for you. Let's dive in. So you've been a marketer for most of your career. So what initially drew you to the world of brand strategy and digital marketing?
I actually studied finance to begin with, and then I did international business for about 2 years for my MBA. I sort of stumbled on the world of PR, and that was my stepping stone into branding and marketing. My first job was with LG as a corporate communications person. And I did PR for a fairly long time, including banking and finance and all of those. And it's just there that I kind of started feeling that there's a lot more besides just PR, and the industry was also evolving. Social media started becoming more mainstream, right? And that's where the transition, which happened at my existing firm, at that point I was working with KFC, is where my role kind of expanded to include social. It started expanding to digital and e-commerce. And that kind of got me a lot more into mainstream branding and marketing. But having said that, I feel PR also kind of gave me this lens of what a customer's or a consumer's viewpoint will be on a brand versus just, brand out thing that the brand is sending out messages. But it also gave me a lens on how consumers are going to be perceiving a brand. And that's how the journey started.
So in your earliest roles of marketing, what were some key experiences that you learned?
Oh, like I said, I started in PR. I think when you start in PR, it's trial by fire. You have a lot of course, this fun stuff and the glamorous part of it. But there was a lot of crisis management. There was a lot of issues management. And I think that would be when I look at all the good stuff, but it's all the crisis and all the issues that never made it to the newspapers are the ones that stick with you.
So at what point during your corporate career did the idea of entrepreneurship spark with Home Kouzina?
I think somewhere towards the end of COVID, and I think we'd all been stuck working at home and in remote jobs for a long time. The home chef market seemed to be booming. If you're in your society and you see a lot of people sending messages and I'm making something, etc. So I was curious about the home chef market. I'd come from the food industry, worked in the e-commerce space for major food brands. And it seemed like the perfect kind of juxtaposition, right? Because everybody was focusing on the restaurants part of it. And I did want to try doing something on the home chef part of it and with e-commerce as obviously as the backbone. And that's how Home Kouzina was born. And I think, again, for a lot of us, like COVID was sort of a tipping point, right? You decided whether you wanted to work from home, whether you wanted to do entrepreneurship. But the clarity, I think, came literally towards the end of COVID, that I really want to be doing something that's meaningful. And it's also something that I can own and build.
So how much testing with ingredients did it take to get to the final product?
Oh, it was first to start with, it was a testing of the concept. So Home Kouzina initially started off as an aggregator brand for home chefs. We did that for about a year and a half, and that model did not do so well. That had challenges in terms of scaling and in terms of operations, which I did not have the bandwidth at that point to run. And that's how about a year and a half into that model is when we pivoted into Home Kouzina, as you know it now, a brand that takes family recipes from home chefs and turns it into spices and masalas and condiments that make way to people's kitchens. And that's, I think, the biggest change or the transition that we, or a pivot that we did. And that was the point.
So, the challenges you faced in the beginning, how did they impact you?
Oh, they make you rethink what you're doing every day. So I'll also give a little bit of a background. When we started Home Kouzina, our quintessential question was that there was a serious dearth of regional cuisine across India, and definitely even a place like Gurgaon, right? You go and ask for a thali, you get the same dal makhnis and the same paneer butter masala or whatever, right? It's pretty much similar, it tastes similar, it looks similar. So the question for us was, how do we get the richness and the breadth of regional cuisine to people's pantries, to get them to their tables and have them enjoy that? So, like you said, in terms of the rethink and the challenge, it was, do I abandon this question altogether and go back to doing something else or try a different project? But we realized that the question was pretty solid. There was still nobody who was able to deliver those regional flavors to people's tables, and people definitely wanted those. And that's how we kind of pivoted from a model which was more about fresh food being delivered across to something which is the quintessential secret of an Indian kitchen or a meal, and masalas and spices. And then we kind of found that it was scalable, it was easier to do, it was less costs intensive in terms of labor and shipping, etc. And that's how the transition got made into the second part of the business.
So, this is a field that's relatively unexplored. So, what inclined you to being part of it?
I strongly believed that there was a depth, a solid lack of great regional food options and the diversity. So, number one, very, very passionate believer that India's regional cuisine is seriously underrepresented. And especially in a place as cosmopolitan as Delhi, NCR, or Bombay, even then, it's very hard to find. Like, I'm from Orissa. I don't know a decent place that offers Oriya food in Gurgaon. I've heard of them. I've never been able to try that food, right? Or or as I've traveled across India because I was an army kid, I've tried different kinds of meals. I again don't know where to get those. You get the standard broad South Indian food that we call, or there's obviously the whole thali piece, which I rant about a lot. So you had those. I think one, there's nobody answering or solving that problem for consumers, and masalas and spices have typically been seen as a commodity. Like, you just like, give me a little haldi or give me lal mirch, etc., or you buy the standard sabzi masala. So we felt that there was a serious gap. One, there was a need. The consumer definitely wanted something. It wanted to try something like that. And there was also a serious gap in people who were providing it, right? And then the third thing, which incidentally happened around the time that we were making the pivot, is that a lot of spices got under the USFDA lens for things like having pesticides, contaminants, etc., which got us into also looking at what was behind the pack. And I know it's something like you consider this a condiment and you just buy it off the market. But the more and more research we got into doing this, we realized that the answer is definitely regional cuisine. It's definitely making it accessible to people, but also being very true to our brand promise that it has to be like a family recipe. So, which means you don't add additives, you don't add preservatives, you don't add colors. So, the more and more research we did into it, we realized that we had a great product also. So, there was a question, there was a need gap, and there was definitely a great solution that we were working upon.
So, what were the key skills you learned in your corporate life that helped you start your startup life?
I think I had to unlearn a lot from my corporate life to do my startup life, because corporates typically have a very large team, a large budget, and very structured processes and things like that. But when you become an entrepreneur, you kind of have to let go of a lot of that. You are the intern, you're the social media, you're the finance guy. So you have different hats that you'll be wearing through the day, but also you have to be really responsive. You can't kind of keep thinking about something because it's really, really quick. So I would say I actually had to change a lot of what I had been in a corporate structure. And this was very comfortable. By the time you spend 20 years in corporate, you're also very comfortable with people doing stuff for you. But here you have to do everything, and you have to be doing it every day on day, and consistently. So I think that that was actually a mindset shift.
And is it difficult to juggle all those different hats?
It is. And I think as your entrepreneurial business grows, and this is something that I learned is initially when I was juggling a lot of those hats, at some point you will start becoming the bottleneck yourself. For example, like I come from a digital social marketing background, right? And I've held on to those functions for really long. And I realized that stuff was getting delayed because I didn't have the time and bandwidth to spend time on it. So at a certain point in your entrepreneurial journey, you will find that it's time to hire people, it's time to hire the right partners, and let them do what they're best at so that you can focus on actually doing things which are helping the business grow are more relevant versus getting super involved in the day to day.
So you've probably seen many different digital marketing tools come and go. So which ones have made the biggest impact on your work?
I think more than tools, and like you said, tools keep coming and going, right? What was relevant when I was probably working with a corporate 5 years ago is absolutely irrelevant by now. But I think it's platforms. There was a time when e-commerce was really big, and then Amazon, etc., and those multi-aggregators. I think in the D2C business, if you're not on top of the Q-commerce and the quick commerce and getting food in 10 minutes, people have got kind of used to that convenience. That is very, very critical if you're building a D2C brand right now. And I don't know what the next wave is going to be, and you can't rely on a tool, but making yourself accessible in the ways that consumers want you is going to be super, super relevant versus any particular tool which is going to be your, a Brahmastra or something. That's not going to happen.
And how do you approach problem solving when you're faced with a challenge or a roadblock in strategy? Is there an example that you?
I think there are two ways. One is go speak to people outside your business, go speak to people who have nothing to do with your industry, who are not from the same background. You will find creative solutions there, because when you speak to people within the same category, people who are doing the same thing, they probably got the same roadblocks and they're probably also stuck at the same point. So it's a good, nice trauma dumping that happens, but nobody gets a solution out of it. But on the other hand, like we had an issue with packaging and shipping glass containers, and we actually found the answer with somebody who had a pottery business. I would have never gone to them because, but they're shipping fragile stuff. They've actually gone through it. And it was interesting that the way you kind of connect on those and find something which is easier, which is not breakable. So that's one. I think the other piece, when you're working on brand strategy and you need to make a decision on X versus Y, we've always gone back to the core of the brand, right? Because every day we get challenged and said, oh, but this is a commodity market. Who buys expensive spices? Who's going to look for all of this? And, a lot of, I mean, now that we're doing the research, a lot of the bigger brands there have stuff like fillers, they have colors, they have additives. When you flip a can over and was I eating this all my life? So we go back and we have a very simple philosophy, and we're trying to explain this to every person on the innovation team, on the supply chain team, and we couldn't find it. So literally we went back and said, okay, this is what our brand ethos is. You have to go back to what your brand believes in. And we said, if my mother, my dadi, my nani cannot tell me what these ingredients are, it's not going into our product. And the moment we made it as simple as that, we realized everybody in the business, all our partners, all our suppliers understood what we were trying to do. So I think it's also sometimes kind of just going back to what you believe in, but making it so simple that everybody on the team understands what we are doing.
So do you have any competition in the space you're in?
While the market is quite flooded with very generic, mass produced brands which have been there for a while, there are a bunch of D2C brands who are doing stuff in the similar space. A lot of them are very regional. There's a brand called Azol based out of Maharashtra, which does Maharashtrian food, Maharashtrian masalas, etc. There's, I think, Bong Eats does something in Calcutta, and then there is Manduva Project, which does pickles, etc. And it's very interesting that all of us kind of have started 2-3 years here, there between all of us, but the ethos and the brand promise has remained consistent. And it is interesting that all of us have stayed here for a while, which means there are consumers, there are people who want that product, right? So that's quite reassuring actually to have competition.
So what sets you apart from your competition?
I think one is we probably are doing a lot of pan India more than a lot of other brands. So I have everything from a Goan fish curry to a Punjabi tikka masala to a Gujarati chas or a shukto masala. So it's literally every little part of India, and our wish is that we are able to represent all of those together on one platform. And we find that also in our sales mix, that initially when we started, people would come for one particular product, right? But now when we look at our shopping cart, people are trying different things. Somebody will pick up, like we have 3 kinds of biryanis and 3 kinds of sambar powder. Nobody is doing that. A sambar is not a sambar. A biryani is not a biryani, right? And people appreciate the fact that, there are these regional nuances. So a typical cart for us would have things like a biryani powder, but also an Udupi rasam, and then they would even be a Gujarati chas and maybe a Vindaloo masala, all in all of that. So the fact that we're able to bring all of those on one particular platform and then ensure that a customer is able to use all of that is, I think, what sets us apart quite a bit. We really, and we say we are family recipes from home chefs. Our recipes are actually sourced from home chefs. So we will go to women who are making authentic, say, Marwadi cuisine or Jain cuisine, etc., and find their family recipes and then transform it into what you see as a packaged product. In fact, we just finished a nationwide family recipe contest, and we've actually winners from Srinagar and Jammu, and we've got somebody from Surat, we've got somebody from Calcutta. But they are these what we found are recipes which are not mainstream, which you will probably not see at a superstore. So it's interesting, and it's a lot of effort and research to find those. But we are very true to finding those family recipes and then scaling them into something which can be scaling it into something which can be sold commercially. So that I think is our winning secret recipe.
How important do you think packaging is with the product? Has that affected yours?
Oh, packaging makes a difference. We do get, so if you look at our packaging, each of them actually has a little bit of a nuance of the region it represents, right? So the Punjabi packaging will have a fulkari pattern on it. The Tamil one has a kolam drawn on it, which is like your white chalk rangoli that you have, right? The Goan has these Goan tiles, I'm forgetting the name, these Goan tiles, etc. So there's a little bit of a regional representation on it. They obviously look good, but they also kind of go back to the regional identity of where the product has come from. And it makes a huge difference. We get a lot of compliments on the product and the packaging. And we've got these little tin dabbas which remind people of those old school masala dabbas that you used to have and do all of that. So we kind of have that going for us.
Could you tell me 3 non-negotiable skills that a 17-year-old should focus on?
Okay, I have to put myself in the shoes of a 17-year-old. And I was just telling to Prajakta, I said, in my 3 years as an entrepreneur, I probably put in more effort than I put in the past 20 years as somebody who's working in the corporate. But it's showing up every day. It's doing things every day consistently. I think the other is knowing what you are and knowing what you are not. So, and which also applies irrespective of your life. It's also, it's a little bit of this is what I am, but there are also these broad spaces and boundaries which you need to draw for yourself, and it has to come from your internal moral compass of what you're not. I think as a 17-year-old, I kind of made some very conscious choices. I was actually studying to become a doctor, and then I was decided, okay, this is not for me. And I think in 1995, telling your parents who are doctors and from the medical profession, you don't want to be one was quite a thing. But it was, and I'm glad I made that decision now, right? I kind of like, I could have been a doctor, I would probably made it through also. But it was important to know that this is not what I want to do, and this is a juncture at which am I making this decision because it's expected of me, which in India, I think every doctor's kid is expected to be a doctor, versus saying, this is not for me. I could do it, but it's not going to make me happy. And I think that's very, very important.
And what's the best way that you think a 17-year-old can make their first lakh rupees?
As a 17-year-old today, you probably have a lot more avenues and choices right now. So you could be a creator, you could also be uh, developing an app, creating something new. I think there's a lot of choices and skills and capabilities which are available right now to make your first lakh.
Could you share how someone can start their digital marketing journey in 2025?
A lot of it, probably you will get a lot of information, and I know there's a lot in terms of online classes, etc. But until you get really hands-on, and if unless you run campaigns and you run stuff or create stuff for yourself or for a client, it's very theoretical. So you need to find somebody, even if it's a small business. In fact, when we started, we worked with very, very small agencies and companies. It's like a 2 people or a 1 person setup, and we'll go ahead and play with it, because and then the learning actually starts, right? So find somebody who's willing to give you a smallish project also, whether it's a charitable NGO, and I support one of these NGOs, and there are kids who are straight out of school who are helping us with the social, who are helping us with the website, who are helping with the digital part of it. So there are enough opportunities, but one is theory, the other is actually getting down to doing stuff. So find those opportunities and you'll be able to learn from them.
So thank you so much for joining me. This conversation was very insightful, and I'm sure all of us watching and me have learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.